Hey everyone, welcome to Toons. I'm Luke, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing The Flintstones and WWE Stone Age Smackdown. Now, I know what you're thinking, this isn't a new film, this film came out in 2015. Well, the reason we're reviewing it is because a few weeks back now, the Flintstones had their 60th anniversary, and I completely missed it while I was making my Disney Channel video. So the next few weeks on the channel is going to feature some coverage of the Flintstones 60th anniversary, and we're going to be looking at different things from throughout the franchise. Now, the Flintstones and WWE Stone Age Smackdown came out in 2015 as part of a deal that Warner Bros. Animation worked out between WWE and Hanna-Barbera Properties. There were two Scooby-Doo movies, Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery and Scooby-Doo and WWE Curse of the Speed Demon, as well as the Jetsons and WWE Robo WrestleMania. And in the midst of all that was this Flintstones film. And not only that, this is actually the first, and to this day the only, direct-to-video Flintstones animated movie. Of course, there has been many television films in the past, but in this direct-to-video format that Scooby-Doo gets like 2 or 3 times a year, this is the only one. And as well as that, it's actually the first major production featuring any Flintstones characters since the TV special The Flintstones on the Rocks from back in 2001. The Flintstones, while being a big brand that people know and are featured in lots of commercials still to this day, they don't have a lot going on in terms of a big media presence releasing films and TV shows. Although I will say there is currently a TV show, Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, on the Boomerang streaming service. Don't worry, this video is not going to contain any spoilers, just in case you hear about it here and want to check the film out for yourself. So I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the film, but like I said, don't worry, I'm not going to go into anything too spoilery. The film starts off with Fred promising Wilma that he's going to use this month's salary to pay for a vacation to Acapulco. However, due to an accident at work, he loses his mum's salary, presumably to pay for damages he's caused. Later, at a Water Buffalo charity event, Fred and Barney are running a boxing challenge with Barney's Hopperoo Hoppy. When two of our WWE guest stars jump into the ring to intimidate the poor Hopperoo, Barney decides he has to stand up for his own pet. And we get a mini sort of wrestling match, which the people of Bedrock just love to see. From this, Fred gets an idea. Of course, he doesn't want to tell Wilma that he's lost his paycheck, so Fred and Barney cook up a scheme to throw a wrestling match so where they can charge entry and they can get money for not just Fred and Wilma's vacation, but for Barney and Betty to join them on that vacation. And so, with the help of Fred's new co-worker John Cena Stone, they set about recruiting different wrestlers for their match. And that's basically what happens in the film, and they have some wrestling matches and lots of hilarious hijinks where Fred's trying to hide things from Wilma. Exactly the sort of thing you'd be expecting to get from a WWE and Flintstones crossover. So what did I think of the film? I actually think this film is great. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really funny. I've missed seeing Flintstones things. So when this film came out, I was more than happy to dive back into that world to see new things from everyone's favourite modern Stone Age family. I thought the tone was great. They nailed the Flintstones humour, which, considering like most of the people in the production of this film hadn't worked on a Flintstones property because there hadn't been any for years, I think it's great that they managed to achieve that in what seemed effortlessly. I mean, I don't know whether it was behind the scenes, but it felt it when you were watching it. One of my favourite things about the Flintstones is seeing how they take the modern technology and they use it in a Stone Age environment. And of course, being that it's been so long since we've had anything major with the Flintstones, they had a fair amount of new modern things to throw into the mix. And I enjoyed seeing Fred pop into Stonebuck's coffee. At one point someone was using a flip phone, but it was actually a clam. I thought that was really fun. Although a little interesting considering clams are normally money in this world. It was fun to see the automatic garage door that wasn't really that automatic. He flicks a button and then the animals, of course, get to work as they always do in the Flintstones world. And there was a few other things I noticed. There was some dangling lights from the ceiling that were actually candles, and there was a seatbelt which was a snake. Part of me feels like they've definitely been used before, but they're not things that I'm particularly familiar with in seeing in the Flintstones, so if they were new, nice. And if they're not, well, I'm glad they're staying consistent with the inventions. There was a few things like computers and tablets, which were really just computers made out of rocks and tablets made out of rocks. There wasn't really any way they explained them, but at the same time, there was never really a great explanation to how TV worked in the Flintstones world. I think that's something that you just sort of have to accept. Yes, they have computers because it's the modern Stone Age life, but don't expect them to explain that one away. Of course, this is a WWE crossover, and I can't not mention the wrestlers. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really follow wrestling, I've got nothing against it, it's just not something I'm really into. So my knowledge on those characters is pretty limited. I came to this film solely for the Flintstones. That being said, I know who John Cena is. I've seen the Scooby-Doo film, so I have a limited understanding of what's going on. And I should note it was interesting to see some of the same characters but with completely different design that were in the Scooby-Doo films. And that's so that the designs fit well within the Flintstones world. Like when you compare them to the Scooby-Doo designs, which aren't overly simplified, they're like fairly anatomically correct. Obviously they were given larger than life muscles, but you know, they look pretty much like people, as well as having the likeness of the wrestlers in real life. Whereas obviously the Flintstones has a much more simplified design. You know, it was made 9 years before Scooby-Doo when the animation was even more limited than it was then. And so the wrestlers had to be redesigned yet again to fit within the world of the Flintstones. And I feel like they are really successful in how they do that. You know, the Flintstones is like such an iconic design, but like it's so overly simplified that I think sometimes it can be hard to capture the likeness of a real life person in their designs. And so you'll notice that you know, John Cena doesn't look exactly like Fred and Barney. You have to give him a more normal shaped face. But of course, this isn't something that's completely new to the Flintstones universe. A lot of the spin-offs, take a look at like the teenage and adult Bam Bam. He doesn't really look like Fred and Barney do. And so I feel like they do get away with it. It's not the first time it's been done. And of course, they really wanted to jack the characters up. They wanted to make them these like big, imposing, muscular like wrestlers that they are in real life. Drawing muscles and like correct anatomy isn't really something that's part of the Flintstones design. I feel like they managed to hit this like middle ground design where they had these like anatomical muscles on still a fairly Flintstones-esque design, and I feel like it really worked well. Pretty much all the wrestlers that were used in this film were absolutely great. I feel like they were all able to play up the personalities and they were able to get some laughs. The two characters I did feel were slightly underused, however, were Nikki and Bree, the Bella sisters, or in this, the Boulder sisters. I just don't think they really had that much to do in the film. At the start of the film, in the Buffalo charity event, you see them in a kissing booth, and later on in the film, during the wrestling bit, you had them like cheering Fred on, but they didn't really do any wrestling themselves, which I feel like was disappointing. You got like a bit of a mini standoff with Wilma, but it wasn't for wrestling. You know, it felt like the characters were there pretty much just for eye candy, which I feel like is a really disservice to them. Like I said, no, I don't really follow wrestling, but I do know that these two sisters are wrestlers. They're not just there for eye candy, so it is disappointing that they weren't included in the action of the film. Sure, it's nice they were there, but it feels more like they were just thrown a bone and they were just featured in the film, because they didn't really do anything. I do always love to see that when they convert something into like the Stone Age world, whether it's a character or Starbucks, they always try and give it a like Stone Age spin. You know, you try and put rock or stone into the name, like, you know, like I said, Starbucks became Stonebucks. And that's great, that's a nice little pun almost. But I feel like sometimes it's more amusing when either they couldn't come up with an inventive name, so they just don't even try. They just add stone onto the end of it. For instance, John Cena became John Cena Stone. CM Punk became CM Punk Rock. I mean, I suppose punk rock is a pun in itself, but it still just feels like they took the name and they just slapped rock on the end of it. I think it's something that's just part of the overall charm of the Flintstones world, and I've got to say, I'm really here for it. So overall, I love this film. I love seeing the Flintstones in a film again, and I would love to see the Flintstones do more of these direct-to-video films. I do think one of the reasons maybe that we haven't seen many of these Flintstones films is possibly because they struggle to stretch a sitcom format into a full film. I think a lot of the times when you're doing a TV to film adaptation, you have to think of a reason that's going to justify why is this going to be a full feature film and not just feeling like a longer version of an episode, which I think is something that, with the Flintstones being a fairly traditional sitcom formula, just with the Stone Age twist, I think sometimes they struggle to find ways to stretch it into feature length. Obviously other Hanna-Barbera properties like Scooby-Doo, because it's a mystery, I think that's something that they find that's easier to scale up and make it feel bigger and more feature worthy when you can just do a longer mystery and have a bigger, more important villain. But I think sometimes a sitcom is harder to come up with a way to justify it. Obviously here the route they took was a guest star, And I honestly don't think this film would have ever happened without the WWE. I feel like they had a deal in place with WWE to produce these Hanna-Barbera movies, and that's the reason we got a Flintstones and a Jetsons film, as well as 2 Scooby films, which had WWE not been involved, you know there would have been some other Scooby film coming out that year, because they churned them out so successfully. But that being said, there's been many Flintstones films over the years. They were just TV films from a while ago, you know, and there's lots of things they could do, like the holiday specials, where they go on vacation. I do think there is opportunities. I think it's just something that, because it's that sitcom formula, it's not the easiest thing to think, yes, we can make lots of these. I feel like they definitely struggled here. This film is only 51 minutes long, which is incredibly short. And if I did have one bad thing to say about this film, is that it was too short. 51 minutes to me just does not feel like I'm watching a full film. At first I thought, well, maybe it's because they spent so much money on all the guest stars and the WWE, but this was a co-production with them, and I feel like they were getting a share of the profits, so I don't feel like that would have been too big a problem, especially because the other WWE Hanna-Barbera crossover films all were around 80 minutes in length. So if it's not a problem there, I doubt that was a problem here. I do think it was something with the Flintstones formula, and they were struggling to stretch it out. In a way, like, as much as I enjoyed this film, it does feel like a stretched out episode, which I don't think is a bad thing, especially because we haven't seen new Flintstones episodes in a long time. But I do think that's something to note. Also, when you take a look at a lot of the Flintstones spin-off series, a lot of them are really only like 10-minute shorts in length, and sometimes they're stitched together. Look at the Flintstones Comedy Hour, the Flintstones Comedy Show. They were all things where they took like lots of like small 7 to 10 minute segments and they stitched them together into a 30-60 minute package, as opposed to being like 20-minute or 40-minute episodes that you'd normally get. So yeah, I do think there is some sort of thing where people struggle to get past the gimmick of the Flintstones just being a sitcom with all the Stone Age hijinks, you know, which is definitely a shame. I would love to see the Flintstones return to this direct-to-video format. I do think it's something where, like, when they release them, they get the profits from the DVD sales like straight away, and they can really see like how well the brand is doing and how well people are liking the film. And you know, if like they drum up enough interest, you know, the Flintstones could be as big as Scooby-Doo again. So yeah, overall I really like this film. I'd just love to see more of them. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my Flintstones 60th anniversary coverage. And while you're at it, ring that notification bell so you will be notified the next time my Flintstone videos come out. I am going to be looking at Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, which is currently airing on Boomerang. It's a like fun new series featuring Pebbles and Bam Bam as children, and I'm going to be telling you all my thoughts on that show. I'm roughly halfway through the series at the minute, so when I finish watching all the episodes that have been released, I'm going to let you know my thoughts, as well as having some other like special Flintstones related videos coming out over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Cheers. Thanks for watching Tube of Tunes. If you want more from the channel, hit subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, follow us on our socials. Hope you liked it. Cheers.